Hey everybody, this is Chef Luis Sanchez and this is A Seat at My Table, and today we're making the #1 dish in the United States for Peruvian cooking, which is Lomo Saltado. It's definitely the #1 bestseller at the restaurant, and it's basically a steak dish that everyone loves, and it's got some Asian influences, and I want to show you how to make it step by step so you can replicate the dish at home. See you in the kitchen. Alright, we are doing the #1 requested dish of Peruvian cooking in the United States. So let's pay attention and let's make this at home together. So, Lomo Saltado, translated, it means, I guess, jumped beef. So it's going to be sautéed beef. So this takes a lot of its influences from Asian cooking. We're actually going to cook in a wok. This is a perfect explanation or a perfect example of like the melting pot theory. So this is immigrants that came to Peru and adapted the ingredients that they found and made them their own and made this awesome dish. So it's not complicated. I think that if you follow the basic steps of searing meat, then you're gonna be fine. So we're gonna start by making what is sort of a sauce. And you can certainly add these ingredients one by one when you're making it, as you're making it, but I like having it so it's easier. I like having them already set up. So we're going to start with some red wine vinegar. And make as little or as much of this as you want, because you'll stay in your fridge for a while. So we're going to add ají amarillo, which we keep adding. I know it's delicious and it just makes sense for us. So we need a little bit of garlic. And we need some soy sauce. And then here we have cumin. Cumin goes a long way, so just a little bit of cumin. And then we have some oregano. This is dry oregano. And then we're going to add some salt and pepper eventually. And then we're going to add a touch of water because vinegar is very strong. And a little bit of ketchup. Not a lot of ketchup, just a little bit of ketchup. This is going to give it a little body and a little bit of the sweetness that you need. I'm going to switch to a whisk. And I'm going to grab my pepper. And I'm eventually going to grab my salt, which I see right next to me. So we're going to add some salt here. And this is going to be added to our dish right as we're cooking it. So you will see it'll make more sense when we do it, but it's going to be really sort of like when we're sauteing the meat and the tomatoes and the onions that I'm going to get to, we're going to add some of this. So this is what flavors our dish. So let's move on to the next part, which is the vegetables. So this is a Roma tomato. And for this dish in Peru, we like using, or I personally like using the outside of the tomato. So I'm going to show you the technique for that. These are very small Roma tomatoes I found, but it still works. So we're going to cut them lengthwise. And because it's such a small tomato, we're just going to cut them in quarters. We're not going to go in, normally at work, at the restaurant, we cut them in threes, but they're so small that I'm just going to go in halves. And then the technique here is basically to come from one end and remove the middle part of the tomato. So you end up with just the meaty part of it, I guess. Since this is the #1 selling dish at the restaurant, all these tomatoes we use for other things. Tomato soup, we use it a lot for our barbecue sauce that we make in-house. So there's always something that you can use it for. So don't throw it away. At home, you can throw it into your sauce if you're making pasta or something. So we have that here. At the restaurant, a serving of Lomo is about a tomato and a half. So it's about 8 or 9 pieces of the tomato. And then we have a red onion, which also has its own little way of being prepared. And it's always made with red onion. It's never made with white onion. So in here, we're going to cut the onion in half, and I'm going to show you. We're not going to need a whole onion. We're not going to even need half of an onion, but I wanted to show you how to do this. So we cut the ends of the onion, and then we peel it. Cool. Once we have it peeled, I'm going to do a little cleanup over here. And once again, we use like the stellar, like the best part of the red onion for this dish. And then the rest of the onion is same, and you can use it for anything else, sauces, soups, anything that you want. So I'm gonna clean this up. And then for the onion, I'm gonna reserve this. We don't need that right now. We're gonna cut it. I really want you guys to see this. So I'm gonna cut it in wedges, I guess. And take your time, because once you have it all prepared, it's all gonna come in together really fast once we're there. So this is the wedge of the onion. There's a part here that I'm not gonna use, which is the inside of the onion, because I want them to be more like even-sized pieces. So then we're gonna just take this onions, and that's going to be our Lomo Saltado onion. Same thing over here. We take the middle part out, and we do this at the restaurant. For every onion that we put in the dish, somebody in the night shift is in charge of doing this and have them ready, and we do big containers of them, and we sell out of them. So again, for a serving of Lomo, it's going to be about 9 pieces, equal parts of this, and a little bit more onion than the tomato, but always the outside of it. So I'll show you really quick. This is more than what we're gonna need for our dish right now. So I'm gonna put this aside for now with this onion right here, and then we're gonna move on to the meat. So Lomo really means filet mignon or tenderloin. So there is restaurants, the fancy ones, that are using tenderloin for the Lomo dish, but in all honesty, 99% of restaurants use beef. It could be any type of beef. In my case, for us, we use skirt steak. We use a black Angus skirt steak. So that's what we have right here. And then the technique here, you cut them in like steaks, like thinner than like an American style steak. And then we cut it in strips like this. And then each strip, we're gonna cut it into like a rectangle, a little bit bigger than other places, so it's gonna have a little bit of a bite to it. So they're gonna be pieces like this. So I'm gonna keep doing that to the beef, and then I'm gonna show you what we or how we season this dish. So almost done. So this is good enough for 2 servings probably. So I'm going to put this on this plate because I have it right here. And then at the restaurant we do this in batches, but we're gonna add a little bit of cumin and a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper. And that's going to be all that we add until we're ready to add this into our dish. So we're gonna let this sit here. And then we're gonna start moving our whole universe over here, and we're gonna start sautéing this. But it's a simple Asian style dish, and it's going to be awesome. And we will see you once we're over there in the kitchen. One thing I forgot to talk about is what comes from my land, my homeland, which is potatoes. So this dish has potatoes, and it's kind of a crazy thing because they're French fries. And here in America, you use French fries for other purposes. But here in this dish, we actually mix the French fries into the dish. So this is the kind of potato that we use at the restaurant. You don't have to find it, but this is called the Kennebec potato, which is great for frying. And then we're going to cut them into what is known here as steak fries. So it's a little bit thicker of a cut than a regular French fry. I don't have to peel these potatoes because the skin is very tender. And then I'm going to cut them into basically steak fries like that. And then you want them to be about this size. It seems a little bit larger than what you're used to, but it's going to have a 2-time cooking process. So first we're going to cook it in oil at a low temperature to basically cook the potato but not fry it. And then when we're making our lomo, then we're going to fry it again. And at the end, we're going to incorporate everything together. So these are the Kennebec potatoes. And to save a little bit of time, I have some here that are already gone through the first process. So they're fully cooked, but now they're cold, but they're not crispy. So if you see, they're fully cooked because I can do this with there. So that's what you want. You want to make sure that the potatoes cook through. So when you're frying them for the second time, you're just doing it to get it crispy. So that's going to give you an awesome final finished product. So we'll see you once we're there. We're going to start sautéing. We're going to have fun, and we're going to make Lomo Saltado. All right. here we are making lomo saltado. The most important part about this dish is the technique in which you cook the meat and your vegetables with. So we have a wok here. My wok is already kind of hot. It's been sitting here just waiting for us to cook with it. So you want to get it really, really hot. Then we want to add the oil, and then we want to sear our meat. This is the meat that has a little bit of cumin, a little bit of salt, and then we're going to add a little bit of just canola oil to your wok. You want it to be really hot. And at the same time, so we're doing two tasks at once. We have our little makeshift fryer, and we have our potatoes that were cooked partially already. And what I'm doing right now is sort of testing how hot the oil is. So I don't see any reaction yet. So we're gonna let that go for a little bit longer. And our oil here is starting to heat up. We're gonna start seeing some smoke, and that's when we wanna add our meat. So I see some smoke now. And you might get a little bit of flame too, which is good. And you want to hear that sear, and you want to move the meat enough so that all the meat is touching the wok, and then you want to leave it alone for a little bit. The reason why you leave it alone is because you want to create that crust. So this is a quick stir fry, much easier done at home. Much easier done at a restaurant than at home because of the intensity of the fire that you have at a restaurant. But it's achievable at a house as long as you take your time and you allow your wok to get really hot and you don't move it too much, because it's that smokiness that is going to flavor our dish, and you will know what I mean. I'm not even touching it, I'm not messing with it yet. I'm still waiting on my oil from my fries to come up. And I will see that once I put a potato there, I'll start seeing some bubbles. I still don't see anything, so I'm going to wait. So at this point, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to start mixing my meat. As you can see, that is the fire that you're looking for, because that is flavoring your meat. So we're going to leave it alone for another minute or so, and we're going to do it again. So the process for this is going to be to saute the meat, and then we're going to pull the meat out because you don't want to overcook it. And then we're going to add first the onion, then the tomato. And we're doing the same thing. We're searing onion, we're searing tomato. Then we're going to bring the meat back in, and then we're going to finish it with the sauce that we made that had the amarillo and the vinegar, oregano, ketchup, and all that good stuff. So checking the potatoes again. Oh yeah, I see some bubbles, but not quite yet there, so we're going to wait a little bit longer. But it might work out perfectly so that the potatoes come out from the fryer, because that should only take a couple of minutes at the same time that my lomo is done. So we're going to shake again. Alright, at this point our beef is nicely seared, so we're going to pull it out of the fire. And then we're going to start adding our other ingredients. So we have a plate here. In that same hot wok, we're going to add our onions. And we're making, enough for one person right now. If you need to, you can add a little bit more oil. And I felt like I need a little bit more. And you're going to let those char or saute for a second or two before you add anything else. The next thing we're going to add is our tomatoes, like we talked about. And in Peru, traditionally, and I know it's a very starch-heavy dish, it already has the potatoes, but we still like our rice so much that we're going to add rice to it. So normally it's served with rice, potatoes, and then our sauté. We're starting to get some color on the onions, which is good, but we're not quite there yet, so we're going to let it be for a little bit longer. And our potato oil is still coming up to where I want it to be. It's not nearly where I want it to be, so I'm not adding the potatoes quite yet, but I will. At this point, I'm going to add my tomato. Tomatoes have a higher water content, so it's going to cool down the pan. Some of them are going to release some of that tomatoey juice or au jus, and that's going to contribute to the sauce. So remember, we still have to add our sauce that we made, and we're going to put the meat back in there. So there's a couple of more things to do. Our potatoes are finally getting close to being ready to be added in there. So the oil is almost at temperature that we want. I see some bubbles on that tester fry that I put in there. So I'm going to start slowly adding enough potatoes for one serving of the dish, because that's what we're working on right now. And at this point, our onion and our tomato are where we want them to be, and we're going to put the meat back in there with all those juices that came out. And we're going to add our sauce. We're going to saute for about 1 more minute, and then we're going to add our cilantro and our fries. So I'm waiting on the fries a little bit. So once they're all good to go, then we're going to add them to the lomo, but the lomo is pretty much just about finished. Cilantro goes in, hold it a couple of times, and then we're going to turn up the fire, and then we're going to add our fries into the mixture in about 1 minute when they come up, and then we're going to show you what the finished plate looks like. See you over here on the counter. All right, everyone, our lomo is ready. This is the kind of thing that you make fresh and you serve right away, and it's just simple. A little bit of garlic rice there, and our lomo dish goes next to it. We added those fries in there, and all that awesomeness comes from that smokiness of cooking this dish. This is it. This is the big one for Peruvian cooking. I am going to add a little bit more of chopped cilantro on top, and this is a good time to get your favorite hot sauce. We have a hot sauce that we serve, which is a roasted jalapeno hot sauce that I'm going to show you how to make. All right, well, here it is, Lomo Saltado. I love this dish. I love how it has some Chinese influence in it, and I'm going to go at it right now. I'm going to get a little piece of beef and a potato. Potatoes are my favorite thing to eat ever. It's all about that sauce that we made. So it's that reduction, the chili paste mixture with the oregano and the red wine vinegar. All those things come in play in here. So it's not very complicated. It's just a matter of getting that wok really hot, like I showed you. So I really want you to make this at home. I really want you to tell me what you think of it. And next time you go to a Peruvian restaurant, wherever you're watching us from, you tell me if yours is better than theirs. So I want to see you here again at A Seat at My Table. This is Chef Luis Sanchez, and I hope to see you soon.